Winterfell was quiet, snow falling like ash over stone walls. In the courtyard, the sound of swords clashing rang through the cold air. Jon Snow, just 12 years old, stood with sweat on his brow, facing Sir Roderick Castle with a wooden blade in his hand. He wasn't like the other Stark boys. He had no title. He was called the Bastard. But today was different. Watching from the balcony above were Lord Eddard Stark and King Robert Baratheon himself. Robert had come to Winterfell months earlier, not just for a visit, but for a plan. "You sure he's ready for this?" Robert asked, chewing on an apple, eyes following Jon's quick movements. Ned nodded slowly. "He has fire in him, Robert. More than Robb, more than any of my boys. He's not just a good fighter. He listens, he learns fast, and he asks the right questions," Robert grunted. "A good soldier doesn't always make a good king, but a smart soldier," Ned said, "with the right guidance might just become one." The truth, buried deep in Ned's heart, was the secret only he knew. Jon Snow was not his son, but Lyanna's, the true-born son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. The boy had the blood of the dragon and the wolf. And maybe, just maybe, he had the right to sit on the Iron Throne. Robert didn't know the full truth. Ned didn't dare tell him everything. But he had convinced the king to take an interest in the boy, to shape him, to prepare him. "You think the realm will follow a bastard?" Robert said, watching Jon take a hit and fall to one knee, only to rise again, swing, and land a perfect blow on Sir Roderick's ribs. "They won't follow a bastard," Ned said softly. "But they might follow a king who earns their respect, one who's brave, just, and trained by a Stark. And a Baratheon," Robert's grin cracked across his beard. "He'll need to learn more than swordplay then. He'll need to know war, politics, lies, and women." He laughed, then suddenly turned serious. "If we do this, Ned, there's no turning back. You're raising a wolf to enter a den of lions, I know." Down in the courtyard, Jon approached, tired and panting. "You called for me, Your Grace," Jon said, bowing awkwardly to Robert. Robert studied him with a hunter's eye. "You fight well, boy. But you know nothing of leading men or ruling lands or whispering in council rooms filled with snakes." "I can learn," Jon said without hesitation. Robert stepped forward. "Then learn you shall. From this day, you'll train under both your Lord Father and me. You'll learn strategy from Ned, history from Maester Luwin, and the art of war from me." Jon blinked. "Why me?" "I'm no lord," Robert glanced at Ned. Ned said nothing. "Because," Robert said, walking past him, "you might need to be more than a lord someday. This realm has too many cowards in silk robes and not enough warriors who understand honor. Maybe you'll be different. Or maybe you'll die trying." Jon looked to Ned. "Is this true? You want me to be a ruler?" Ned's face was calm, but his eyes held something deeper: pride, worry, hope. "I want you to be ready," Ned said simply. "For whatever comes." That night, Jon couldn't sleep. The wind howled through the tower window. He sat by a candle, reading a book on Targaryen kings, not knowing why it called to him more than any other history. He read of Aegon the Conqueror, of dragons, of honor and madness. He read until dawn. Somewhere deep inside, Jon Snow began to feel that he was more than a bastard, that he might be something greater. And far away in King's Landing, whispers stirred. Varys had already heard that the king had taken a strange liking to Ned Stark's bastard. The spider's eyes were everywhere. And this was not just a boy. This was a threat. The weeks that followed were nothing like Jon had known before. Winterfell had always been cold, but now it felt colder, more serious. His days began before the sun rose and ended long after the stars had come out. There were no games, no lazy mornings with Ghost at his side. Every hour had a purpose now. He trained with the sword until his muscles ached, studied maps of Westeros until his eyes burned, and listened to Robert speak of rebellions, betrayals and war stories over meat and ale. It was exhausting, but Jon never complained. He knew this was more than just training. This was transformation, and it wasn't just his body that was changing. It was the way people looked at him. Robb still called him brother, but with something sharper in his tone now. The younger boys, Rickon and Bran, looked at Jon with wide eyes, like he was something more than just their father's bastard. Even Lady Stark had started noticing. Her cold glances now lingered longer, filled with suspicion, but Jon ignored them all. He had a purpose now, and it was bigger than the walls of Winterfell. "You're improving," Robert said one morning, watching Jon spar against 3 guards at once and managing to stay on his feet. "But that's not enough. You need to be faster, crueler. Men will cheat to beat you. Lords will smile while plotting your murder. You think having a good heart will keep you alive? You're wrong." Jon wiped blood from his lip. "Then what keeps a king alive?" Robert raised his eyebrows. Fear, loyalty, power, and enough sense to know when to use each. Ned stood behind Robert, arms crossed. He didn't argue with the king, but his silence was full of weight. Later that night, Jon sat with Ned in the godswood under the heart tree. The snow fell lightly around them, like the weirwood itself was weeping slow tears. "Does he speak the truth?" Jon asked. "Is fear really what makes a king?" Ned took a long breath. "Robert speaks the truth as he sees it. He became king through war, not wisdom, but rule through fear alone. That's no king. That's a tyrant. Then what do you believe makes a king?" "Honor," Ned said simply. "Sacrifice, wisdom, and mercy. You must have a sword, yes, but your heart must never become stone." Jon nodded, his thoughts heavy. "Then why train me like this? Why all this secrecy?" Ned's eyes met his. There was something painful behind them, because the world is not kind to good men, and it is crueler still to those born into lies. Jon froze. "What do you mean?" Ned looked away. Before he could speak further, footsteps interrupted them. It was Maester Luwin, holding a sealed raven scroll. His face was pale. "A message from King's Landing," he said, handing it to Ned. Ned broke the seal and read silently. His jaw clenched tighter with every line. Finally, he folded the letter and tucked it into his cloak. "Is it bad?" Jon asked. "Queen Cersei is not pleased with Robert's stay in the north," Ned said. "She thinks he's wasting time." "That he's being influenced?" "She knows," Jon said. "She suspects," Ned corrected. "Which is worse. Suspicion poisons faster than truth in the capital. She'll try to stop this," Jon said. "She won't let me get near the throne." "Which is why," Robert's voice suddenly called from behind the tree, "we need to take our next step." Both Jon and Ned turned to find the king approaching, with his usual mix of swagger and tension. But there was something darker in his face tonight. "I'm taking Jon with me," Robert said. Ned stood up quickly. "To where?"
"South," Robert replied.
"To King's Landing. I'll name him my squire. He'll live under my roof, learn from my men, and be introduced at court. Cersei will protest, but she won't stop me. I'm still her king, and I still wear the crown." "That's dangerous," Ned said. "They'll eat him alive down there." "Then let them try," Robert growled. "If the boy is to be a king, let him walk through fire before he sits on a throne." Jon didn't speak. His heart pounded with fear and excitement. King's Landing. The Red Keep, the place where kings lived and traitors died. He knew now this was real. No more hiding in the north, no more being just the bastard of Winterfell. He was walking straight into the lion's den. The south was nothing like Jon imagined. The sun seemed too bright, the air too warm, and the people too loud. King's Landing smelled of sweat, smoke, and secrets. Even the castle, the Red Keep, felt like a trap built from stone. Its hallways twisted like snakes, filled with whispers and false smiles. There were no quiet forests here, no snow, no honor. Robert walked through it all like a bull through a market, proud and loud, with Jon trailing behind him, dressed in stark black. At court, Robert introduced him proudly as my ward and squire, son of my dearest friend Ned Stark. Cersei's green eyes had narrowed the moment she saw Jon. "Oh," she said with a voice like sweet poison. "So this is the bastard boy I've heard so much about." Jon bowed awkwardly. "Your Grace." She circled him like a lioness, her lips curled in a half-smile. "He has your eyes, Lord Stark," she said toward Ned, though he wasn't there. "But none of your name." That night Jon dined with the royal court, Robert at the head, laughing over meat and wine, while Jon sat quietly 2 seats down. He watched men flatter, lie, and toast the king with one hand, while holding daggers behind their backs with the other. Varys was there, dressed in silk, his voice soft and snake-like, Littlefinger too. With mocking eyes that saw more than he spoke, Jon didn't trust any of them. But he listened. Later, alone in the chambers given to him, Jon found a note slipped under his door. The handwriting was sharp. Bastards don't belong in the Game of Thrones. Go back north before you drown in fire. A friend. He didn't sleep that night. Not out of fear, but because he finally understood something. This wasn't a court. It was a battlefield, and he was already a target. The next morning, Robert took Jon to the training yard. "I want these southern fools to see what the north breeds," he said with a grin. Jon fought well, faster than before, harder. He beat 3 squires in a row. By the end, a small crowd had gathered, watching with amused interest. Some clapped, others whispered, but not everyone smiled. From the edge of the yard, Sir Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer himself, leaned on his golden sword, watching with a quiet, arrogant smirk. "Not bad," Jaime said as Jon walked past. "For a bastard," Jon turned. "Would you like to test that?" The yard went quiet. Jaime chuckled. "Fiery little wolf, aren't you? Careful, Snow. In this city, fire attracts dragons, or worse." Robert stepped forward. "Enough. He's not here to make enemies, but he's doing it so well," Jaime replied before walking away. Later that week, Robert gave Jon his first real task. "You'll attend the small council meetings with me. You won't speak unless spoken to, but you'll listen and learn. You need to know how this kingdom works, or doesn't." Jon nodded. It was the first time he entered the real belly of the beast. The council chamber smelled of wine and ink. Varys sat beside Grand Maester Pycelle, who kept nodding off. Renly Baratheon, Robert's younger brother, played with a coin between his fingers. Littlefinger smiled at Jon but said nothing. They spoke of coin shortages, rising tensions with Dawn, and strange fires in the east. But Jon noticed how every topic circled back to one thing: power. Who had it, who wanted it, and who needed to lose it? By the end, Robert looked exhausted. He waved them away and sat with Jon alone. "They're wolves in silk, boy," Robert said. "None of them loyal. Not to me, not to the realm. They love gold more than honor. If you ever sit the throne, kill half the council the day you wear the crown. The rest will fall in line. Is that what you did?" Jon asked. Robert didn't answer. That night, Ned came to Jon's chamber. He had arrived quietly from Winterfell, unannounced. "Things are moving faster than I wanted," Ned said, locking the door behind him. "Whispers have reached me. The Queen is already planning something. Maybe not now, but soon," Jon frowned. "Why does she fear me?" Ned hesitated, then finally sat down. "You need to know the truth," he said. "Not all of it, not yet. But enough." Jon leaned forward. "You're not my son, Jon." The words struck like a blade. "You are Lyanna's," Ned continued, "and not by some low-born knight. Your father was Prince Rhaegar Targaryen." Jon's heart froze. "A Targaryen?" "A true-born one, not a bastard. Your name should be Aegon." The room felt like it was spinning. Jon could hardly breathe. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because your blood is dangerous," Ned said. "More dangerous than you know. If Robert ever found out, but he's the one training me, because he doesn't know who you are," Ned said quickly. "He thinks you're my bastard." "If he knew you were Rhaegar's son," Ned looked away, "he might kill you." Jon's world shattered quietly. Everything he thought he knew, his name, his past, his blood, was a lie, but one truth now burned in his chest. He had the blood of kings, and that meant one day the throne might be his, if he could survive long enough to claim it. Jon didn't speak to anyone for 3 days after Ned told him the truth. He still walked the halls, trained in the yard, and sat silently beside Robert during court meetings, but inside, he was somewhere else. Every time someone looked at him, he wondered, do they know? Can they tell? He looked at the dragons carved into the stone pillars, the banners of Targaryen kings that still hung in hidden chambers of the Red Keep, and he looked at his own face in the mirror, searching for the blood of Rhaegar in his eyes. He saw nothing, just a boy who had been lied to his whole life. Meanwhile, Cersei Lannister had grown tired of pretending. He's dangerous, she said, pacing her chamber as Jaime lounged nearby, sharpening his sword. First Ned Stark lies and brings the bastard to court. Then Robert starts training him, favoring him, calling him loyal and smart and worthy. You know what this looks like. A distraction, Jaime replied, bored. Robert's just playing games. No, she snapped. It's worse. I've spoken to Pycelle. There are rumors, quiet ones, about Rhaegar's last child. A boy who vanished after the rebellion. A boy with Stark blood, Jaime sat up. You think I think Ned Stark has lied to us all. She poured wine with a trembling hand. If he truly has Targaryen blood, she continued, and Robert finds out who he really is, then that boy becomes a threat not just to our children, but to everything. Jaime didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both knew what had to be done. Jon was walking the library halls late that night, unable to sleep. He carried an old book on Targaryen lineage, curious now, obsessed with what was real and what was myth. That's when he saw him, a pale figure in silk robes. Varys. Forgive me, the eunuch said softly, appearing from the shadows like a ghost. I did not mean to startle you. My lord? Jon nodded politely, trying to walk past. But Varys stepped in front of him. You walk the halls of kings, Varys said. But you still carry the silence of the north. Curious, Jon frowned. Do you need something? I need nothing, Varys said. But you need allies. Jon narrowed his eyes. Why would I need allies? Varys smiled. Because you sit too close to a throne built on lies. And those who know the truth do not sleep well at night, Jon froze. I don't know what you're talking about, he said quietly. Of course not, Varys said, turning away. Just be careful where you sleep, my lord. And who brings your wine? Jon watched him vanish into the dark hall. His blood ran cold. The next evening, Jon was summoned to Queen Cersei's solar. He didn't want to go, but denying the queen meant risking suspicion. So he went, alone. She greeted him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You've made quite the impression, she said, pouring 2 glasses of wine. Robert speaks of you as if you were his own son. I serve him with honor, Jon said, standing still, refusing to sit. Do you? She asked, tilting her head. Tell me, Jon Snow, do you think yourself worthy of the Iron Throne? Jon stared at her. No, liar, she whispered, walking closer. I see it in you. The way you move, the way you watch the court. You hunger for something. I hunger for peace, Jon said calmly. Cersei laughed. Then you're in the wrong city, she offered him the wine. He didn't take it. I will not drink, he said. Her smile faded. Wise, she said coldly, but not wise enough to know when to leave. What do you mean? She stepped closer, voice dropping. I know who you are, or at least I suspect, and if I prove it, the king will hang your head from the gates of King's Landing. Jon didn't move, didn't blink. I'm loyal to House Stark, he said. And to the crown? You're loyal to yourself, she snapped. And that will get you killed. He left without another word, but inside he knew the game had begun. Later that night, Ned stormed into Robert's chambers. She's making threats, he said. I know her. She suspects the truth. Robert sat with his head in his hands. Gods, Ned, why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I wanted to protect him. Robert looked up slowly. He's Rhaegar's boy. Ned hesitated, then nodded once. Robert stared for a long time. I should kill him, he said softly. End it before it becomes another war. Ned didn't flinch. But I won't, Robert said finally, because I see him, and he's nothing like his father. But outside the chamber, Varys stood in silence, having heard every word, and in the darkest corners of the Red Keep, a raven flew into the night, carrying a message straight to Dragonstone, to the last living Targaryen. Far across the narrow sea, on the rocky shores of Dragonstone, Daenerys Targaryen stood by a fire as the tide crashed against the cliffs. The skies were grey, the sea restless. She'd grown strong in exile, harder, wiser, but still hungry for her family's throne. She held the raven scroll in her hand. A message from Varys. A dragon lives in the lion's den, hidden in the skin of a wolf. Rhaegar's son, Stark's secret. The last male heir of House Targaryen. Her hands trembled slightly. She had always believed she was the last, the only one. Now, a name whispered across the page like prophecy: Jon Snow, her brother's child. A threat or an ally? She didn't speak as Ser Jorah Mormont read over her shoulder. This could be a lie, he said carefully. Varys is not known for truth. No, Daenerys said softly. This is real. I can feel it. She turned toward the flames. Rhaegar had a son, and he lives in the house of my family's killers. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply stared into the fire and whispered, "He has what belongs to me." Back in King's Landing, Jon walked the Red Keep's highest battlements, the cold wind whipping his cloak as dusk settled over the city. Below, torches flickered and voices echoed. But up here it was silent. He needed silence now. The walls were closing in. Cersei watched him with open suspicion. Jaime avoided him entirely. Even the lords at court had begun treating him differently, some with false respect, others with quiet fear. The lie had become too big to hide. He felt the truth crawling toward the light, and once it reached the wrong ears, it would burn everything down. Ned met him up there. "You shouldn't walk alone at night," he said. "I can handle myself," Jon replied. "I don't doubt that," Ned said quietly. "But blades in the dark don't care how skilled you are." They stood in silence for a while. Then Jon asked, "Why did Robert spare me?" Ned hesitated. "He saw something in you," he said. "Something Rhaegar didn't have. Robert hated your father, but not you. Maybe he thinks giving you a future is how he makes peace with his past." "I don't want his guilt," Jon muttered. "You may not have a choice." Jon turned to face him. "Well, if Robert dies, they'll kill me." Ned's face turned to stone. "Which is why we need to leave," Jon blinked. "What? I've made plans. Quiet ones. If things go wrong, if Robert falls, or if Cersei moves against us, you and I return to Winterfell. We vanish, and do what? Hide forever?" "Survive," Ned said. Jon shook his head. "That's not who I am anymore." That same night, in the shadows beneath the throne room, Varys met privately with Littlefinger. "The boy is more dangerous than I thought," Varys whispered. Littlefinger smirked. "Which boy?" "There are so many wolves in the city now. The one with dragon's blood. Ah, the royal bastard who's not a bastard." Varys didn't smile. "If the people learn the truth, the realm could fracture. Targaryen or not, the North might rally behind him. And if Daenerys crosses the sea, then we'll have two dragons fighting for one throne," Littlefinger finished. "Delicious, isn't it?" Varys's voice dropped lower. "Robert is not long for this world. His heart fails him. His enemies are circling. Cersei won't wait forever. We must choose carefully." Littlefinger leaned in. "Why not let the realm burn?" he whispered. "It's in fire that new kings are forged." The next day, Jon was called to Robert's private chambers. The king sat by the window, pale and sweating, holding a goblet of wine that trembled in his grip. "Sit," he grunted. Jon did. Robert looked at him for a long time. "I should have had sons like you," he said. "Not cowardly brats raised by a lioness." "You do have a son," Jon said quietly. Robert laughed bitterly. "Do I? Joffrey's more Lannister than Baratheon. And the other two—" "God's help me," he took a deep breath. "Ned told me everything. I've had time to think. And I've made a decision." Jon's chest tightened. "You'll be named my heir," Robert said. "If I fall, you rule until the realm decides. Maybe they'll choose you. Maybe not. But they'll listen." Jon stared, stunned. "You can't." "I'm not ready. None of us are ready," Robert said. "We become kings in fire or in blood. Never peace." He looked out the window. "And peace, boy. Peace is a lie." Before Jon could respond, a scream rang through the castle. A servant burst in, eyes wide with terror. "Your Grace, it's the Queen. She's summoned the guards. She's declared the throne belongs to Prince Joffrey." Robert stood quickly, then stumbled, grabbing his chest. He collapsed. Jon caught him just before he hit the floor. Blood trickled from the king's mouth. "No," Jon whispered. "Not now. Not like this." Behind them, heavy footsteps echoed. The Lannisters were coming. The sound of Robert's collapse still rang in Jon's ears. He held the king's weight in his arms, felt the man's chest rise once, twice, then go still. The goblet of wine lay spilled across the floor, its red stain spreading like a wound. For a moment there was only silence. Then came the boots, gold-cloaked guards flooding the corridor. Jon stood, sword half drawn. "Send for Lord Stark." The captain hesitated. "Orders came from the Queen herself, sir. The Hand is under arrest." "The king is dead, long live!" Jon's blade flashed. "Say his name," he warned, "and I'll cut out your tongue." The captain swallowed hard. No one moved. Then the sound of trumpets burst through the keep. From below, the cry went up, "King Joffrey! Long live the king!" Jon's stomach turned to ice. In the dungeons below, Ned Stark knelt in chains. He'd been seized the moment Robert fell, accused of plotting treason. Cersei had moved faster than anyone thought possible. When Jon was dragged before her, she sat on the Iron Throne itself, calm, perfect, poisonous. "How touching," she said. "The bastard who thought himself a prince." Jon's wrists were bound, his sword taken, but his eyes never left hers. "You killed him. Proof?" she asked lightly. Wine turns bitter in old men's mouths. Perhaps grief killed him. Perhaps ambition. She tilted her head. "Whose ambition, I wonder?" "I served him," Jon said. "He named me heir." Laughter rippled through the court. Joffrey stepped forward, wearing his father's crown and his mother's smile. "My father would never choose a bastard over his blood." Jon wanted to tell him he wasn't Robert's blood at all, but the words would only sign his death warrant, and Ned's. Cersei leaned forward. "Confess you poisoned him, and I might let your Stark father live out his days in the black cells." Jon's jaw tightened. "I confess nothing." "Then rot with him," she said, rising. "Take him." They threw Jon into the same cell as Ned. The air was damp, the stone freezing. He could barely see his hand in the darkness. Ned spoke first. "He's gone?" Jon nodded. "They poisoned him. The Queen has crowned Joffrey." Ned sighed heavily. "Then the realm is lost." "Not yet," Jon said. "You still have men in the north." "Robb can march." "Robb is a boy," Ned replied. "And boys die in southern wars." He looked at Jon, eyes hollow but clear. "You need to live. That's all that matters now." Jon clenched his fists. "Live as what? A prisoner, a lie?" "As hope," Ned said softly. "Your name may be Snow, but your blood is fire. If you die here, that fire goes out." He leaned closer. "There's a man loyal to me, Yoren of the Night's Watch. He'll come tonight. Go with him. Say nothing, live." Jon started to protest, but Ned's voice hardened. "That's an order." Hours later, the cell door creaked. A hooded figure stepped in, smelling of straw and smoke. "Quiet," Yoren whispered. "The Queen's dogs are sniffing everywhere. I can take one man, no more." Ned shoved Jon forward. "He's the one." "Lord Stark, go," Ned said. "We'll meet again. In the north, or in the next life." Jon hesitated, then gripped his hand. "I'll come back for you." Ned gave a faint, sad smile. "You sound like your mother." They slipped into the tunnels beneath the castle, through passages older than memory. Above them, bells rang, and crowds cheered the boy king's coronation. When they emerged in the alleys by the docks, Yoren shoved a cloak into Jon's hands. "Put this on. You're a recruit now. A crow." "The wall's that way," Jon shook his head. "I'm not going north," Yoren glared. "You'll die if you stay." "I'll die if I run," Jon said. "But I won't hide while she rules." The old ranger studied him a moment, then sighed. "7 hells, you've got your father's stubbornness." He handed him a dagger. "At least take this, and if you ever get the chance to run, then take it." Jon disappeared into the streets before dawn. In the Red Keep, Cersei stood by the Iron Throne, staring at the crown resting on Joffrey's head. Varys appeared from the shadows. "He's gone," he whispered. Cersei turned sharply. "Gone?" The Stark boy. "Escaped during the night." Her hand tightened on the throne's arm. "Find him?" Varys bowed. "Of course, Your Grace." But when he left, a thin smile crept across his face. "The dragon lives," he murmured to himself. "And one day he'll return." Far away, on the deck of a ship bound for the free cities, Jon watched the sunrise bleed across the sea. The wind bit at his face, and every wave whispered the same word. Fire, somewhere beyond the horizon. Another Targaryen was staring into the same dawn. Neither knew it yet. But their fates were already entwined, and the next time they met, the world would burn for it. The ship cut through the waters of the narrow sea, its sails flapping against the morning wind. Jon stood near the bow, hood low over his face, eyes fixed on the horizon. Behind him Westeros faded into mist. Ahead lay Essos, the land of merchants, sellswords, and exiles. He had no map, no plan, only a name that could get him killed, and a dagger too short for a real fight. He didn't sleep much. He dreamt of fire, of thrones made of swords, dragons in the sky, and Robert's blood pooling beneath the Iron Throne. In the dream, his hands were always covered in ash. They docked in Pentos, and from there Jon vanished into the crowds. Euron had offered him safe passage to the free cities, but Jon knew better than to travel with anyone tied to Westeros. The Lannisters had long arms. He couldn't risk leading death to the Night's Watch. Instead, he sold his horse for coin, cut his hair, and changed his name. To some he was Jorah, to others just Snow. In the back alleys and smoky taverns, no one asked questions as long as you paid, but danger found him anyway. 3 nights into Pentos, he was followed. 2 cloaked figures moving like trained men, not thieves, not beggars. He ducked into a winehouse and circled back, blade ready. When they came, he moved first. The first man he disarmed in 2 strikes, pressed a dagger to his throat. "Who sent you?" "No one," the man gasped. "We were told to find the northern boy. The one with the Stark look. Who told you?" He hesitated. That was a mistake. Jon's blade pressed deeper. "Who?" "Illyrio," he gasped. "He's collecting knowledge." For the queen across the sea, Jon stepped back. His mind raced. Daenerys. Meanwhile, across the bay in the ancient city of Meereen, Daenerys sat in her throne room, her dragons stirring restlessly around her. Drogon snarled at a servant who got too close. She didn't notice. She was reading Varys' second letter. "He lives. He survived the fall of Robert." The boy fled. "He now walks the east, nameless, hunted, and dangerous." She whispered the name aloud. Jon Snow. It sounded strange on her tongue, heavy, powerful. "He is my blood," she said to Ser Jorah, who stood behind her. "He could be your rival," Jorah replied. "Or my ally," she said. He looked uneasy. "You don't know his heart. I know his blood," she said. "That's enough for now." She stood. "Find him." Jon didn't run this time. Instead, he waited. He changed his direction, heading not west to Lys, but east toward Meereen. Toward her. Not because he trusted her, but because she was the last person in the world who might understand what he carried in his veins. He traveled with a caravan of spice traders, watching their every move, never sleeping twice in the same place. In the mountains near Astapor, bandits attacked. Jon fought beside the traders, and they called him a silent sword after that, a nickname that followed him from village to village. He didn't mind. It was better than Targaryen. When he finally reached Meereen, it was nightfall. The great pyramids loomed over the city like gods in stone, and in the sky above something moved, a shadow, then flames. Jon froze. A dragon. For the first time, he believed what Ned had told him. For the first time, he felt it in his blood. He was not just wolf. He was fire. He expected a cold welcome at the gates of Meereen. He didn't expect her to be waiting for him. Daenerys stood at the top of the steps, cloaked in black and red, her silver hair braided like a crown. Her eyes locked on his before he even spoke. "I know you," she said. Jon lowered his hood. "I didn't come for war." "I know," she said. "But war follows you." He approached slowly, aware of the Unsullied at her sides. The dragons circling overhead like gods watching men. "I didn't ask for this," Jon said. "Neither did I." They stood in silence. 2 heirs. 2 weapons. 2 flames flickering in the wind. "Why come here?" she asked. "Because I have no home left. And because if you are truly what they say, then you might be the only one who understands what it means to carry this blood." She stepped closer. "Then come," she said, "and show me what kind of dragon you are." But far away, in the Red Keep, Cersei Lannister stared into the flames of her fireplace. In her hand, a torn letter from the east. "He's alive," she whispered. Qyburn stood near the shadows. "Shall I prepare the assassins?" Cersei's lips curled. "No," she said. "Let them meet. Let the dragons rise. When they're together, we burn them both." The war didn't wait for them to be ready. Within days of Jon arriving in Meereen, 3 ravens came. The first bore a message from the north. Robb Stark had raised the banners. Winterfell stood behind Jon, even if they didn't know the truth. The second came from Dawn, offering quiet support to Daenerys, so long as she remained far from their sands. The third bore no name, only a scrap of parchment soaked in blood. "We know where the dragons sleep." Daenerys crushed the message in her hand. "Cersei has spies here. She's watching. She's daring us to move," Jon said. "She's not afraid. Not yet. She should be." Jon and Daenerys spent every evening in the war room now. Maps spread before them. Strategies whispered over candlelight. At first, they spoke like strangers, careful, calculated, testing one another with words instead of blades. But slowly, they softened. Jon told her of Winterfell, of snow-covered pines, and a quiet godswood where secrets lived in the trees. He spoke of Ned, not as the cold, honorable lord the world feared, but as a man who gave everything for a lie that kept him alive. Daenerys spoke of fire, of her brother's cruelty, of walking into flames and walking out unburned, of hearing her dragons call her mother in her sleep. They didn't say it aloud, but they both felt it. They were no longer alone. But peace was never meant to last. It happened under moonlight. A scream echoed from the stables. By the time Jon reached them, it was too late. Rhaegal, the green dragon, lay bleeding across the stone, his throat torn open by a black spear laced with poison. Drogon roared from the sky, circling in agony. Daenerys collapsed beside her fallen child, whispering in Valyrian, as if her words could close the wound. Jon turned the corpse of the assassin. The sigil on the dagger hilt was Lannister. "She's not waiting anymore," Jon said, jaw tight. "She killed my son," Daenerys whispered, her eyes blazing. "I will burn her city to the ground." Jon didn't stop her. Not yet. Within days they sailed, a Targaryen fleet, mixed with northern banners and unsullied spears. Crossed the narrow sea like a storm. The people of Westeros whispered of it in dread. "The Dragon Queen has come. The bastard prince rides with her. Fire and ice are marching together." In King's Landing, Cersei watched from the Red Keep's highest tower as ships filled the Blackwater Bay. "They won't take the city," she said. "I prepared for this." Below, wildfire waited in the sewers, the same green fire that once burned Stannis' fleet, enough to destroy an army. "They think dragons make them untouchable," Cersei whispered. "But dragons burn just like everyone else." But Jon had a different plan. He entered the city first, alone, through the same tunnels Varys once used to move spies. By the time Daenerys reached the gates, the bells rang. The city had surrendered. Cersei had vanished from the throne. Daenerys stood before the Iron Throne, its blades catching the morning light. Her eyes shimmered as she reached toward it. Then Jon arrived, blood on his cloak. "She's gone," he said. "She escaped through the tunnels." "She'll return," Dany whispered. "They always return." Jon looked at the throne. "It's yours." Daenerys turned to him, her voice trembling. "No, it's ours." He took a breath. "What if I don't want it?" "You were trained for it. Being trained to rule doesn't mean you're meant to." She stepped closer. "And if I say, we rule together?" Jon didn't answer at first. "I don't want to become my father," she whispered. "Or your father? Then don't," he said. "We break the wheel. We choose something better." They kissed then, not as conquerors, but as survivors. They didn't take the throne. Instead, they dismantled it. The Iron Throne was melted by Drogon's fire, reduced to slag. The symbol of centuries of blood, destroyed in a single breath. In its place, a council was formed, one with voices from every kingdom. Some hated it. Some called it weakness, but for the first time in generations, the realm had peace. Cersei Lannister was hunted down in the Vale, her body burned in secret. Jaime died protecting her as he always would. Ned Stark was released from prison by the new council. He returned to Winterfell, tired, greyer but alive. Robb welcomed him home with tears. As for Jon and Daenerys, they vanished from the public eye. Rumors said they sailed east. Others claimed they went north, beyond the wall. Some even said they died. But those who knew them best believed something else entirely, that the wolf and the dragon chose peace over power. That love, for once, conquered war, and that they didn't need a throne to rule.